AITA for asking to stay one more hour at my mum's on Christmas from my dad. Hey everyone, so for a bit of context, I, 18F, have level 2 autism and don't really handle being yelled at particularly well, plus I tend to avoid conflict. This also happens every Christmas except for last one where he got COVID. My parents, 53F and 51M, are also divorced and have been divorced since I was in year 3 and they haven't been on speaking terms since. I've also been living with my mum without swapping weeks since about 2021. It was my decision after a large argument I got into with my dad after my at the time doctor labeled him as being abusive. So on to the story. About a week before Christmas my dad called me up and insisted on picking me up at 12 p.m., which I've always tended to hate since I never get enough time to talk to my mum's side of the family. I asked him if I could have more time, like an hour or two, which was when he started screaming at me over the phone. During this conversation, he mainly calls me stupid for not understanding street smarts and how my mum is clearly drugged up and convincing her ex to be her drug dealer. My mum's ex was going to be at the party because my half-sister's children being there. He proceeded to dismiss the time one of my doctors called him abusive before I eventually gave up and gave into the idea of being picked up 12 p.m. Despite being obviously upset about it, I was crying because of him yelling at me. After that we left it at there until Christmas Eve, where I asked my mum if she could try convincing him, which although she agreed, it didn't help. So moving to today, I woke up and had a missed call from my dad, so I called him back up where we said Merry Christmas to each other before I asked about having more time at mum's again. He got angry at this and proceeded to scream at me, but I stood my ground and insisted on 1 to 2 p.m. and not going at 12 p.m. This resulted in him deciding to cancel the Christmas plans I had with him because he makes my life miserable. I didn't say this. I said not seeing the rest of my mum for more than 30 minutes sours my mood for the rest of the day, before giving me the silent treatment, hanging up on me. This was after I said that the earliest I'm going is 1 p.m. before I don't care about how he thinks it's unfair that mom gets more hours over the year because I'm not even covered my child support anymore and he's technically getting more of the day regardless on Christmas. Honestly, I'm just a bit confused over this whole situation. I still want to see him as I had presents I handmade for him which probably won't even be give. I don't even really care about my presents, I just want to spend more time with some of my family that I only usually see only on Christmas. I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong anymore or what to think about this. If I am in the wrong I will apologize, but I'm pretty sure that he's not bluffing about canceling Christmas, knowing him. So Reddit. AITA. Also apologies for bad formatting, I'm on mobile. AITA for not allowing my mom to stay another week after her pipes burst just before Christmas. 38/F I am celebrating Christmas with my mom. 68/F. My brother 47/M and his family. My mom flew in from out of state and we are driving to a meetup location to spend time with my brother's family, a place in the mountains we all enjoy just for the holidays. All of us live hours away. Our mom being the furthest. On the opposite coast. My brother and I are several hours away by car. This year, we received the bad news that, while my mom has been at my place, her pipes froze and flooded her basement. She is upset. Understandably. I helped her get everything started and have her insurance, a cleanup team and a general contractor all working on her place while she is with me. She then broached the topic that she wanted to extend her week stay to 2 weeks or more. I said no. I need to get back to my regular routine and get ready to return to work. She's welcome to stay here as originally planned, which is until Saturday. Then she said she may ask to ride back with my brother and his family to their home in another state, opposite direction than me. She refused to ask him until Christmas. So Elle gave my brother a heads up last night so he has a chance to speak with his wife. I also told him that he's under no obligation to say yes, as she is still welcome to stay with me until Saturday and her insurance company will be footing the bill for most of her stay at a hotel and meals, if her residence is uninhabitable. Which we do not know at this time. He told me he didn't have room to take her back with him, 3 people in his car and no room for a 4th, assuming luggage is the issue. That I should let her stay with me because she's lonely. I told him I understood that. But I'm not wrong for wanting to cap my time with her at the 1 week originally planned. He had left that text on send. My mom can be a challenging personality, and with this unfortunate development, she's even more difficult. I love my mom, but I'm tired. I want my house back and don't want to be criticized or complained at. I refuse to allow my lonely mother to extend her stay with me, despite the recent damages to an unknown state of her home. AITA for prioritizing my space and personal downtime over my mother's emotional needs. AITA for getting engaged after my brother's wedding. Edit. Paraphrased some direct quotes and removed some potentially identifiable info. My brother and his now wife got married 3 days ago. A very small destination ceremony, under 15 people total. My now fiancé and I extended our trip after everyone went home and spent a couple of days exploring the Grand Canyon, a couple hours north of the wedding. where he proposed. When I shared the news with my brother and now Sil, he responded with hostility saying that it looked like we were competing. I apologized, quickly realizing that he was advocating for my Sil and that she felt hurt, although I'm truly failing to understand why. I also texted her a separate apology and explained that it was not our intent to encroach and just wanted to share the news with family and that it's my belief that there's room for happiness for everyone. She did not respond. In response to my apology, my brother doubled down and said the timing and location were hurtful and that we shouldn't plan around the wedding. AITA for walking out on Christmas. I am not a very social person and the holidays can be very taxing for me. My extended family is in town from all over the world and for the past month they've all been here. It's the biggest gathering in recent memory. Every day there is a big group activity or meal with family. Myself and my husband work full-time at a very stressful job and we are also experiencing financial issues. So we were expected to join family functions while continuing to work and we only had a few days off for Christmas. I try to set boundaries but honestly it's difficult because I'm the oldest of my siblings and I feel a lot of obligations and pressure. My husband has been on and off reacting strangely. Sometimes he's in a terrible mood and doesn't want to talk or engage. When he's like this he is impatient with me and doesn't want to hear me vent about family or anything I might be upset about. Other times he seems okay. I know he's missing his own family, they live in another country, and we made the choice not to fly to see them this Christmas because of finances. Last night was Christmas Eve. And the entire family is meant to unwrap gifts together. It's a tradition. On the way there, I take my younger cousins and husband to get ice cream. I get some for my mother too. When we get to the house my mother immediately asks where the rest of the ice cream is and blames me for not getting enough for the entire party although she knew I was going to the ice cream shop and hadn't clearly asked me to. She just expects me to know these things. Everyone starts avoiding me. Which is generally what happens when my mother and I get like this. For them it's less drama with me being the scapegoat because it happens so often anyway. I'm wandering around and my husband is in another room entirely talking to my younger cousin and brother. He says to me that what my mother did was messed up. But there's so many people there and I'm feeling socially anxious and tapped out so I can't properly respond. I say I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I want to go somewhere quiet with him. I want to say more but my husband is in a strange mood again and doesn't wait to let me finish. He decides to leave me instead and play a game with the cousin across the room. I'm feeling totally isolated at this point. By the time my husband comes back, I'm at my breaking point and I just need to leave the house. I tell him that and walk out without him and I actually go home. Feeling alone in a huge social gathering where everyone is avoiding me and where I've been publicly shamed is the worst feeling to me. Eventually I go back but it's hours later and everyone acts like nothing happened except for my husband. He says I crossed the line and he's not talking to me. AITA. AITA for writing my siblings out of my will? For context. My brother, 30M, and sister, 25F, have lived very far from me for a long period of time, for me. Going on over a decade now. They never bothered to include me as a sibling growing up and have continued the tradition into adulthood. Contact is sparse at best. And only when initiated by a mutual third party. Never voluntary on their end. And all attempts from me are ignored. I have received a medical diagnosis that isn't looking good and I wanted to ensure that, should the worst come, my affairs would be in order over the next few years. I updated my living will recently, family doesn't know I have one, and struck them from it. Barring them from receiving anything. Instead leaving assets to my parents with instructions on their provisioning. Friends have told me that I'm being harsh and I should include them. But I hardly know them anymore and any interactions have been largely negative over the past 10 to 15 years. I could care less what happens after I'm gone but I don't want what I worked hard for to go to them. AITA for not visiting my family as often as they'd like. Context, I, 28F, had my son, 17 months, recently. My dad, 59 to 60, and sister, 30, don't come by all that often and I don't either. I have never missed a get-together, event or birthday. We found out a few months ago that, during the end of my pregnancy and recovery from my C-section, I had a fractured pelvis. This had made it hard to sit in a car let alone drive. I'm better now but my car died about a week ago. Recently they visited my grandmother and didn't tell me. Instead choosing to say they didn't think I could make it because of my son's nap schedule. I told them that was my concern and not theirs. This caused a big argument where my dad brought up how they had been patient when I had to leave early to care for my cats. I had a diabetic cat who sadly passed away this year. While you were pregnant, I don't know what he meant, and when you had a newborn and for nap schedules. Now my son was hard as a newborn. He had infant dyschezia in which he would suddenly scream at the top of his lungs to poop. He also started Teething at 2 months, and at the same time we had a soya sauce bottle explode in our kitchen at 2 a.m. This caused him to no longer sleep well. Even to this day, I haven't visited much due to having been in pain. Having a difficult child in car rides. Not being able to drive without pain, and my dad's dog having snapped at my son. Neither my sister nor my dad want to take responsibility for the dog and ignore it when it's mentioned. I will mention they are both allergic to cats as well. Which I understand and respect them coming anyways. TLDR, my family is upset I don't visit them often outside of get-togethers, events and birthdays. Yet I've tried to explain to them why. AITA. WIPTA for skipping family Christmas. WIPTA for skipping Christmas with my family to relax and avoid socializing. I'm not personally religious by any means, but I've never actually skipped it because I celebrate it as time with family. In full honestly, I wouldn't even think twice about skipping if it weren't for the fact it's my mother's favorite holiday and she's been looking forward to it all year. Heck. She was upset I worked today, Christmas Eve. She loves playing board games and watching TV and spoiling everyone rotten with gifts and making lasagna. For context, my mother has an absolute bleeding heart and a tendency to adopt random people. This includes my sister-in-law's siblings, and their boyfriends. Both of which were never actually invited by my mother and just invited themselves. She buys them gifts. Makes their favorite foods, for the people she actually invited or knew was coming. Etc. The whole 9 yards. And I love her for it. I think it makes her such a wonderful person, and I couldn't be prouder to be her daughter. The problem comes in the form that A, I don't know these people. I do not consider them part of my inner circle and thus do not consider them family for it to be a family event anymore. And B, I have severe social anxiety. Like last year I spent doped on an edible, legal in my state, to avoid full-blown panic and don't remember any of it. I literally just slept the entire time. Truthfully. I can also get very mean when I'm overwhelmed or find myself in said panic and can never think straight. There is also no stepping away. As my old bedroom is now a reading room with no privacy and the noise would just be too much, and I always smell awful because I sweat so damn much and I genuinely hate it. I also hate being touched and people being within arm's reach of me, but only my mom and sister-in-law respect that boundary. They all seem to want hugs or to be in my bubble. I am not on medication for this. And I do not want to spend Christmas high to the point I just sleep through it. To get through it. I know this makes me a horrible person. But I just really don't want to deal with it. I don't have my mom's bleeding heart or need to randomly adopt other people just because. I also don't want to the resident jackass during Christmas to everyone and ruin their holiday because I can't seem to get over myself or have control of my damn emotions. It's not fair to them. And I don't think it's fair to have to be higher than a kite to avoid it. It's not like I wouldn't drop by once everyone leaves or just visit the day after for my mom. But I also can't just tell her why I'd be skipping, because then I'd be the asshole for not wanting to share the holiday just because I don't want to socialize and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings by saying, oh, they aren't family and I don't want to spend time with them. Like I'm mean. But I try not to be cruel. And it literally makes everyone's day to come over to her house. I ain't popping that bubble. So. WIPTA. AITA for not appreciating a Christmas gift? With the holidays here, my family opened our Christmas presents a little early. My mom got the item I asked for. But it wasn't the color I wanted. I told her I don't like browns. The color the purse came in. And I know I upset her. But I really hate the color of the purse she got me. AITA for telling my mom to tell her boyfriend to stop telling me what to do. I, 20F, have been starting to get really annoyed by my mom's new boyfriend. At first he was cool. But now I feel as though he is overstepping. My parents got divorced only a year and a half ago and my mom and her boyfriend have been together for roughly 6 months now. Of course I am happy that she found someone new. But his actions are bothering me. It started after she told him about an argument we had. And he randomly told me to be graceful to those around me. During my teenage years my mom and I would argue a lot. But it was nothing out of the normal mother-teenage-daughter conflicts. I'll admit I do still have a bit of resentment towards her for some of the things that she has done/said. But I am working on it with therapy. We are good for the most part. But sometimes she will have an attitude and I will use attitude back at her. Which she probably told him and prompted him to say that. Either way though, I think it is none of his business the arguments I go through with my mom. The next thing that bothered me was on Thanksgiving when I was upset because of an argument with my BF and needed some extra time to collect myself before going down to the table. My mom called me over the phone to come and I didn't go immediately. But I said give me a few more minutes. It was then when I got a knock at the door and I said who is it? Please don't come in right now, and her BF burst through the door anyway and kept telling me to come downstairs right now. That rubbed me the wrong way completely and I was even more upset and hated being downstairs after that. The last thing that happened to him was this evening when we went out to eat for Christmas Eve. And we had all finished eating, so I slipped away to the bathroom to check my phone. My BF was asking me about something important, so I continued replying when I got back to the table. It wasn't even 1 minute of me still being on my phone when he told me to put it away. I said I will and continued to text because I was just aggravated. My parents raised me to have manners. And they never banned me from using my phone completely at the table. Just not excessively, which I knew not to do anyways, and that was not what I was doing. The rest of the time I just stayed quiet and couldn't wait to go home. When I got home I told her to tell him to stop telling me what to do. To which she replied, "You tell him," and she seemed mad. AITA for not going to my husband's family's Christmas. I am a first responder and have been for the last 3 years. My schedule is a rotating shift pattern, days/nights. The pattern is consistent and I can tell you what days I'm working very far in advance. Because of this, I told my entire family last year that I would be working on Christmas this year and reminded them when we saw them. This is the first time I have had to work on Christmas. My side of the family understands and we are celebrating with just my parents and siblings another day. My husband's family is really into Christmas. Like everyone needs to be at Sil's house at 8 a.m. to open presents together, and then we spend the entire day together. So when I asked if we could celebrate together another day over the holidays instead, it got shut down with statements like Christmas is on December 25th. Or I don't understand. Can't you just ask for the day off? So I let them know my husband would be attending solo this year. This morning while I was at work, my husband, who works a 9 to 5 and is enjoying his day off, texts me, "It would be nice if you could come by for a couple hours tomorrow after work." I declined because, 1. Sil lives 90 minutes away. So that's 3 hours of driving. I would be driving home alone at night with not the best weather. 2. My job can be very stressful and my social battery is drained by the time I get home. 3. We already agreed that it made more sense for me to stay home and to have him go to his parents' house on Christmas Eve so they could drive over in the morning together. Well, my husband is pissed and thinks that I don't want to spend time with his family. He's been sending me passive-aggressive texts all day trying to guilt-trip me. We don't know how much time we have left with my parents. It's working because I feel like I'm letting everyone down and I don't want his family to think I don't want to spend Christmas with them. AITA if I stuck to our original plan instead of making an effort to go see his family tomorrow after work. ETA** I am locked out of commenting till January 2nd, so I'll just reply here *. Thank you everyone for taking the time to respond. I was really upset last night and it's nice to get an outsider's perspective. One of the comments said it's not the date, it's the day, and I'll be using that from now on. A couple of you guessed right. Yes. Part of my job is answering 911 calls. My husband mostly understanding of how our shifts work, but I usually get pushback on long weekend or celebrations. I have been trying to convince him to come in for an observation shift so he can finally understand. But he doesn't feel comfortable listening in on the calls. I haven't confirmed, but I think what may have caused him to even request my appearance is that his father, who is in the early stages of dementia, may have asked what time we were both coming over, forgetting I was not coming over. This shift schedule is still new to him. And he hates showing up to events without me and having to explain to everyone I'm not there because working. This is definitely something we are going to have to work out before we try and have kids. Thanks again everyone and Merry Christmas. Especially to all my fellow first responders, healthcare workers, shift workers, and anyone who has had to work a 24/7/365 job.